Hello everybody and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out Infernus by a student at the DigiPen Institute. This is sort of adventure and poetic experience is what it's classified in on the genre, and there's a little bit of a blurb before we get started that I think I'll read just to give us the proper context of how we're going to be critiquing this sort of non-game walkabout thing. So Infernus is an experimental level design project focused on creating a creepy and atmospheric first-person experience. This is a solo design project using the Unity game engine and making heavy use of materials available on the Unity Asset Store. The primary goal of Infernus was to craft a small set of highly polished levels that could stand on their own or be implemented in a first- or third-person game set in the survival horror or role-playing genre. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I have actually played all the way through this, like this blurb just said. It was essentially just kind of a beginning to end type thing, and what's here isn't so much a narrative, but I figured this would be a good opportunity to do some critical looking at of some 3D design and 3D modeling and such, and just see how things stack up. So what we're going to be basically doing in this walkabout is heading to hell via a castle portal, and it's kind of a neat framework. I definitely enjoy some of the moments visually that are created here, and since this is a Unity game, it kind of gives you a nice example of some of the things that you could create both visually and auditorily in the Unity engine, and there's some good moments, like I said. So right now, decrepitude seems to be the predominant theme. We've got a castle that seems to be falling apart in all directions. I'm looking for anything that's jumping out at me that looks particularly good or bad. Well, we've got a little bit of popping going on over here on the right, which, considering this is kind of a small environment, maybe seems a little gratuitous, but at the same time, very few people probably notice that stuff. And there is a lot of individual brick modeling here, and the way you can always tell that is just get right up next to it and see what sticks out of the wall. Sometimes they try to fool you with bump mapping and stuff, but in this case, well, bump mapping doesn't have any actual depth. It just looks like it because of the lighting effects. And we've got some kind of silly-looking texture seams and stuff. I'm very particular when it comes to my 3D design, when it comes to the modeling and mapping and things, because I have done a little bit of this myself, and I don't mean to belabor this one area. I just wanted to kind of make sure I saw everything I wanted to see here. There's also some water going on down here. I don't think we've got any kind of deformation or even like an acknowledgement that we're walking through the water, other than just that sound effect that's playing. And I think there is I think we've got a little bit of a reflection map going on in the water there. Alright, so let's head on up the stairs. And trust me, I'm not going to spend this much time in all the rooms, but there's a few key spots that I kind of wanted to hone in on and just point out for a moment. But yeah, I'm pretty particular about this stuff. I've made a number of maps. I've gotten pretty okay at using, the Unreal Engine when I was in my prime of doing deathmatch maps for that. And I'm not saying that makes me an expert by any means. This work is most definitely better than what I could do, but there are a few details that I'll pick out that I think a lot of people probably would pass by. And one of the things that I always like to look out for is, like, what's going on in the places where you're not really supposed to look, because that's usually where you find the majority of the weirdest stuff. Even in AAA commercial releases, a lot of the time, or almost all of the time, I'll find a bunch of weird texture seams or things that just aren't really very good looking in general. Oh, we've got quite a reflection map change as we go from here to there. That's actually a striking one, considering as we walk down, you can see there's actually the archway above, and you can actually see that, hopefully, in the water below. I'm trying to keep the camera somewhat still so you can see the archway there in the reflection, and then we walk a little closer, and all of a sudden, I don't actually know what that reflection map is. It doesn't look like anything. It looks like a bunch of jumbled up polygons, so maybe there's an error going on there or something. But then I think as we walk further down this tunnel, things start to balance out and look a little bit more normal, and there we go. More like something you might expect. And we got some very green hues as we walk through this. In fact, the color palette of this, in some ways, is reminding me a lot of Dark Souls 2. Actually, some of the other features, like this texture tiling thing that's going on here, also kind of reminds me of Dark Souls 2. And the sort of, well, I guess this doesn't really have any bump mapping from what I can tell here, but I feel like Dark Souls kind of jumped in and out of that too. So yeah, what I meant by the texture tiling is, like, right here you can see there's a replication of that, well, look for like a key highlight or something, and then you can see how it repeats. There's two dots there right about where I have the screen centered. You can see that happening and then happening again immediately to the right. Then up above it, well, you get the idea. It's just the same thing a couple of times, and then it's mirrored and reversed on the other side of the archway. Then on a larger scale, looking down this hallway, you can see how we've actually got a repetition of a bunch of key elements. And these sorts of things really stand out to me for some reason. I feel like if I was designing something like this, I would really go like way above and beyond to grab each and every possible area and try and mess with the alignment in such a way as to make sure you couldn't see any replication or tiling as you look down a large expansive hallway. Or if it was unavoidable, I would just add something to break up the line of sight so you don't really have that issue as much. But, you know, that aside, this doesn't look all that bad or anything. I am nitpicking on a pretty large degree here. And what's going on this angle? We've just got a bunch of fallen bricks, it looks like. Nothing going on in here. So I guess we'll head over to the side and into this cavernous area. It looks like something straight out of Skyrim. We're getting pulled into a Doctor Who-style crack in the wall and taken to a new zone where things are going to look a little bit different. We're going to channel our inner Dear Esther, and honestly, this is actually a very nice-looking area once we get out of some of the muddy-looking cave area. And that's just kind of one of the issues with caves in general. I feel like a lot of times people don't really compose caves as much as like an actual composition, because that's what I like to think of any 3D design, and I really do like these peeking out lights, although I would like to see the projected shadow from that root bundle up above. But I think people don't really look at these level design and layout exercises sometimes as sort of like framing a piece of art from every possible angle, where wherever you look, there should be something of interest that might capture or be framed properly to look stunning all on its own. Sometimes you just get a few key moments of that, and a lot of just repetition or filling space. And especially when you're talking about caves where like you don't really expect there to be much order, things are going to get very repetitious and very muddy. And this is like a really good example of what I'm talking about right here. This particular moment, there's basically nothing worth looking at all. We've just got some muddy rock textures in pretty much every direction, and a very slight variance in lighting. Just as you get a little further away, there's a little bit of depth of field fog type effect. And it looks like I might be able to go in two different directions here. Is that actually true? I did walk through this, but I already don't remember. Well, I'll go where it's prettier, right? Let's find wherever that is. Wow, that looks so much like Skyrim or Oblivion. I can't even tell which. It's the way that the light gets very yellow as you get up close to it. Almost as if we're carrying a torch, and I guess if this was modeled to be in the style of an RPG, well, that makes a whole bunch of sense now, doesn't it? So I guess it's just a dead end. This is where you would have the bandit encampment, only there's no bandit encampment, it's just me. Alright, so let's walk down where we'll find some more crystals and such, if that is the correct direction, or have I already turned myself around? It's quite possible that I have. And that's another problem sometimes when you deal with caves and such. You end up with a position where wherever you're going, you can't honestly tell forward and backward from each other very easily, because there's not a lot of distinguishable landmarks, and who wants that, really? Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I just walked all the way back to the beginning. Alright, now I know which way is forward. Sorry about that. In case you're wondering, there isn't a run button or anything. We're just hampered by the usual standard controls. You got WASD and mouse look, and that is all. There's no jump, there's no run, there's no duck. There's no duck, how sad. So we're gonna go right this time, I think, or was it left? I already don't know. Let's go right. Just paying far too little attention. Okay, so that was the dead end. Now we're gonna go left, and we're gonna keep going, and we're not gonna get turned around this time, and everything's gonna be just fine. Yeah, how could I miss that? There's freaking bright crystals up on the ceiling. So the goal at this point, if you're a level designer, when you're dealing with something like this, and this is, again, just my assertions, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but if you could try to frame as much as you can in every possible angle, like we're doing around here, things start to look all of a sudden much more interesting, and all of a sudden you go from, I kind of don't care at all about this cave, to, wait a minute, I kind of want to walk around and explore some of this, and maybe look at some of the details on the walls. And it's as simple as just having something with some pretty highlights and some shader effects on it. Something like these crystals, which you don't honestly know what the point of them is, if there's even a point, but they make you intrigued. And nothing less intriguing than a pile of rocks that goes on ad infinitum to make you kind of zone out when it comes to level design. And this is a really nice use of the lighting and a little bit of glow and some differentiated color to really pop that, you know, what's going on with the crystals into the frame of viewpoint, so you really do care about them a little bit more and want to actually pay attention and look at them. So then we move into the next room. The crystals seem to be gone, but now we've got an assortment of mushrooms and spider webs, as well as some nice highlighting lights going on in the middle of the room, and a pool of water downstairs. I can walk through it, but it does something very strange. I guess as reflection map pops into place. Alright, so there's probably not much reason to go down here. I'm guessing maybe this is resource heavy or something, because, like, why would you not want the reflection map until you actually walk into the water? That seems kind of funny to me. I was noticing, actually, in a few moments that the frame rate was chugging a little bit, which is a little sad, considering I have this running at 720 with two GTX 770s. So, you know, being that this is Unity, it's generally not too hard on the resource usage, although, you know, if something's not super optimized or has way too many polygons in one area, I guess that can definitely lead to some bad stuff, no matter what you're really working with. And now we're getting back into muddy territory, where things are just looking very cavey and a little bit bland. Thankfully, that lighting effect on the area of effect around the character does at least help you sort of highlight a few things, and it sort of gives you a better sense of depth. Since looking off in the distance, we've got some view fog, and then close up to us, we've got some lighted, some colored lighting, rather, and that does definitely help to draw us forward. So let's go a little bit further. And what is this? We've got a giant chasm in the ground. Well, like I said, we're going to channel our inner Dear Esther and fall in and wish for the best. Alright, so actually, we landed in a pool of water, and whoa, what is that reflection map? My goodness. I don't have any concept of what that is. Just like some ethereal demon rocks hanging in space. I don't really know what that has to do with anything. It's almost creepier that way. Now, this is where things start to get interesting, because walking out of that, you actually have a really nicely lit vantage point coming up, and it's something that definitely looks like an attention grabber. And this looks almost, I would say, leagues better than some of the rooms we were just walking through in the past. So if you could have some kind of a focal point like this happening all the time, or at least as close to all the time as you can manage, things all of a sudden start to become much more interesting. Now, the thing that gets me, though, is where is this light actually coming from? I believe we're supposed to be thinking it's coming from over here, but once we get further in, we'll kind of realize there's not any actual light source, which kind of irks me a bit. I don't know if this really gets to everyone. You can feel free to let me know in the comments if this does bother you, but I personally, coming from an art background, I always kind of look for light sources, even if I do it instinctually, like I'm not necessarily trying to, it just involuntarily I start looking around and going, alright, so what's causing this to happen? Because I want to see continuity in the world, I want it to be immersive like that, right? And looking around here, well, I see a lot of lights on things, and I see them sort of dabbled about to create composition, and that's cool, but I also want to know where the lights are happening and why. And in this case, since I know how this all works, well, I can all of a sudden picture this 3D space with the wireframe meshes on everything, and there's just a few little light bulbs hanging in the air with circular radial patterns going on around them. And all of a sudden, the majesty of this setting becomes a little bit less bold and beautiful. But, you know, still, even that said, you know, it's a pretty nice-looking setting. The particles in the air do a lot. The hanging tendrils of vines with slightly lit pops of color coming through do a lot. The little hits of depth and extra detail coming from the intaglio around those arches with the little skeleton thing going on in there, that looks really nice as well. Some brambles, as well as some well-defined rock stuff going on the side. And I don't see a lot of seams and repetition on these walls, so honestly they did a pretty good job with this one. So I guess we'll head on a little bit further. Also, this super shiny bit of, I guess this is metal texture, that really does help too. There's certain moments and certain textures you want to really emphasize, and if you have extra shiny metal, it offsets this dull rock really well. Especially when you've got a little bit of, perhaps, I think there's some bump mapping going on there, some very slight lighting highlights happening on the edges. Pardon this super ultra tech, just really tech-heavy episode, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I just really wanted to break down all of the details of this particular setup here. So what do we have going on in this room? Not a whole lot. This one's largely kind of bland. We've got one lighting source, which seems to just be kind of randomly lit on the ceiling. I was hoping there'd be a hole or some kind of little, you know, bit of light peeking through, and if you could add some, like, light rays and tendrils to cause some shadows up there, that would be really nice as well. Helps break up the monotony of just having everything look flat. And then we'll get back into Crystal Land, which is where I want to be. And my goodness, what is going on down there? We've got a portal, so I guess we'll take the Oblivion Gate. Also, some of these, just pay attention to the way that this arch or this slope goes, because I've probably actually seen this very one used, this asset used before in other games. And when you're dealing with something very specific like this, you want to be sure not to reuse this, or if you do reuse it, do a lot to make it look like it's not the same asset, because it doesn't take a lot to all of a sudden look very similar. And especially when you've got like an S-curve going on like that, well, it makes itself very obvious to the player. So we've gotten through all the portals, and now we're in our last destination, which is basically Hellzone. And this is what I'm after. This is a very nice, totally washed out, bright light with some lens flare effects going on, and even some particles dropping through to give us that sense that there's maybe something bigger than just this level design. We've even got, it looks like, some projected shadows here on the floor. I always like to test those by walking through it with some sort of object that's attached to the player on the screen. And what is this? We've got some voice acting all of a sudden. And that brings us to a new element, which I didn't even realize we were going to be going for. But yeah, we've actually got a little bit of a story happening here. And I don't really want to guess or, you know, make conjecture toward what this could actually be. But I'm sure you guys will sort of figure it out.
I'm so happy that you decided to join me.
And she'll just pop up every now and then, say a word or two. It's all tagged and triggered as I walk.
I'm going to kill you.
She's going to kill me. She's having a good time, I guess, as I walk through.
I was just kidding.
Was she kidding, though? No, I don't think so. Too bad there's no subtitles, but I guess since this is sort of an exercise, not that big of a deal.
Where do you think you're going?
I'm going to the Hell Crystal world, of course. Look at those, they're actually very pretty. That really grabs my attention. I would like to look at more things like this. I would love a whole room filled with these, although they would probably kill the frame rate.
You're failing to detain me.
Kind of like she said, you're failing to detain me. Oh, what's this?
Get out of here!
Seems to be getting very upset at me. Some nice breaking up of the very, very crimson lighting style that we've got here. This is a little bit whiter, and we've got some of those same tendrils being repeated, although everything's got a shade and a hue of red going on now, which is, you know, thematically good. And it looks like we've got this S-curve again. And I think they might even use it a third time.
What if I'm not really here?
I don't know. What if you're not really here? I can't really tell you. There's a lot of lunacy happening in a short period of time. Alright, she dropped me down a hole. And we got some more red caves to go through.
No. Are you okay? Did that hurt? I bet it did.
And I think that's about as red as you can possibly get. But I kind of like that we went all in on the red here, and my gosh, that is very bright. That effect of having it really kind of blow out the lens a little bit is kind of neat. I don't think I would want to see it all the time, but a little hit of it every now and then, not too bad. And the spider webs look like they really catch the light, which is pretty neat too.
I believe in you. Really, I do.
You're not convincing me, lady. Another red world. Some lava now. Well, more lava, I guess. This looks like different variations on some of the same models. This actually looks similar to where we went down that slope and then there was a water pit, so maybe it is actually something just like that. I'm not actually sure how much of this is pre-constructed, so I don't even know how much I can blame on level designers if this wasn't actually them and it was actually assets. Ooh, these crystals are very pretty, and it does really blur the line of, like, how much of the work are you doing and how much of the work are you arranging. It becomes very difficult to attribute successes or failures at that point without getting into the really granular breakdown of what exactly were the assets and such. Oh, look how pretty and yellow this is. I really like this effect. I mean, the ground and the way that this is lit up, I'm pretty sure this is also a replication of that mine area where I pointed out that there was that nice lighting effect coming forward from nothing. I feel like this might just be that same effect reused, but with a yellow light now. to sort of have the amount of work that's necessary. They all have such a glow to them, too. Oh, that's very pretty. See, I remember this being a rather dull-looking area before, but now it's lit up red. It's a little easier to look past. And now all the particles in the air seem to be, you know, flying embers and such. You can see a little crack there above the rock in the wall right ahead of us. So a little bit of a red light shooting through. And my goodness, what are we in Hell and Sen's Fortress all of a sudden? I forgot there was footsteps going on this whole time. Had them so quiet. It's a very lonesome experience walking through all this. It's funny, if somebody figured out a way to, like, procedurally generate endless stuff to walk through, I would totally just keep doing it for hours. Oh, did I find another way to go? I don't think I noticed this way last time. I think I just kept going straight. It's nice to break this stuff up. If you get too much just straightforward corridors and hallways, it gets pretty boring. Oh, this might be a dead end. I'm going to be very disappointed when this is a dead end. Oh no, I guess I have to turn back. Alright, so I guess this would be, you fight a minor enemy here, and then you get a key, and then you turn back and go the other way, or something like that. You know, if there was stuff going on in these rooms, I think I would be a lot more forgiving if this was actually an in-game environment. And I do know that that's the main goal here, and I'm just criticizing it based on the merits of just the level design and the 3D modeling and such. But no, I am totally aware that if this was part of a game and I was fighting enemies and actively engaged with something completely outside of the norm, I'd probably walk through this stuff, not even really think too much of it.
I love you.
But I like to aspire to hold everyone to a higher standard whenever possible, just because, you know, this stuff is art. So why not treat it like art at all times? And what are we going to do here? We've got a big old white light to walk through. Oh, I like that effect, how it turned gray like that. And the sky is now black. Oh, and opening up with almost like HDR lighting as this gets a little bit brighter. This looks pretty nice. And the slightly pinkish, whitish light that's right in front of this gate, even though we've seen the same gate already with the same angle and everything, it looks like a focal point for sure. So a little bit further, and I think that's about all there is, unfortunately.
Delicious.
I smell delicious. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't even know what she's saying some of the time. And I have it playing right into my headphones, so... Oh, nice shadows going on here. Ah, look at that. That's very nice. We've got some god rays, colored ones, and we've got a bunch of vines and a whole variety of things happening right here. That's actually a very picturesque shot with the depth and the variety of things happening both in and out of frame, you know, close and far. A little bit further down. We have another replication of that same shot, something like that anyway. So much happening overhead, you might just walk right by. And a third little cavern with these planks above us. And again, the lighting dims. What's this? Is just a random pipe in the wall? Is that what? Oh, it's just a rock. It just looks like a pipe from the back. I say, we haven't seen much of anything human-made for quite a while.
Don't stop.
And this looks like our final destination. One of those magical electric sphere ball things. So we're just going to wander up there and go touch it and see what happens. Kind of a neat thing to run into at the end. I could definitely see this being like after you fought a boss, this would be like the way you would warp out of the dungeon or something like that. Again, also having dealt with some of the Skyrim creation tools, I feel like a lot of these environments are very much within the realm of like the Skyrim design ethos. And there we go. So I didn't even actually walk all the way up to it. So we end up falling from, I guess, the sky toward a nondescript ground area or lava or atmosphere or I don't know quite what. But I guess we've fallen from the caves to the Inferno below. So that was Infernus. Hopefully you enjoyed this very critical look through some level design and 3D design stuff. Feel free to let me know your opinions in the comments on this, and feel free to also go ahead and download this yourself if you want to take a walk through it. It is totally free. Link's going to be right in the description. And of course, just feel free to just let me know whatever's going on in your mind. If you have anything that I said that was particularly off base, keep it fair and reasonable, of course, but I certainly don't mind being corrected if it's something that I said that was just way off. And, of course, feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to come back again tomorrow. New episodes of Indie Impressions go up every single day. So if you enjoy what you see here, there's a whole variety of different games you can find over on indie-impressions.com, and there's a link for that in the description as well. Over 800 different games, all sorted by genre and category, as well as payment style and distribution platform. So if you're looking for a particular style of game, you can spend all day looking through stuff over there, and they all have videos on them. So be sure to come back again tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all later.